Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you brought your tickets to a ride of a lifetime.
It's really more about, financial is really more about making wise decisions and then having the discipline to see those things through. And so forming those habits is really key. He's not going to give you one tip tonight. You're like, oh man, if I do that, I'm going to strike it rich. Get rich quick schemes very seldom work. But how important are habits in decision making and money?
Yeah, we will focus on habits. I think it's important because it's not the one hit, if you make it big at one time, like the lottery, it's doing it consistently over a long period of time. If you've ever read the book Millionaire Next Door, it's filled with stories of those who chose to practice something throughout their life. It's really a lifestyle more than anything else, and did that over 20, 30 years and came out the other side as a millionaire.
It would be fun to sit here tonight and say, how many of you guys, raise your hands, would love to be rich after tonight's session? Because we're going to teach you 3 steps that are going to get you there in no time, and you can find those kind of things all over the place. But what we can say tonight is if you follow some principles, you'll be setting yourself up for a foundation of living a life of great wealth. And there's a big difference between being rich and being wealthy. A lottery winner is all of a sudden rich all of a sudden. But a wealthy person, I'll never forget when my dad passed away, the funeral, the person doing the eulogy said that he died a wealthy man. And I was sitting there thinking, what's he talking about? We barely made it. And then he went on to talk about the heritage and the principles and the character and serving in the war. And I thought, he was a very wealthy man. He had a great heritage behind him. And you can say the same thing because there's all kinds of stories in the Bible about finances and money. In fact, more verses on money than heaven. And it's obviously a very important topic. A couple that come to mind would be the parable of the talents. Whether you've been given a lot or a little, what you do with it really is important. The story of the rich man counting all his money and he's going to be dead tonight after he built the barns and stored it all up. And so if we chase money and fame and fortune, good luck. It's fleeting. But the principles and the character and what you're going to talk about are the things that are giving you a lasting value. And yet some of you are sitting there, I know, thinking, man, I'm in that situation. Money's always an issue. It's always tight. I wish there was a time where I could just breathe a little bit. But I'll tell you, you'll never make enough. As soon as you make a little more, you want more. As soon as you make a little more, you want more. And so you'd be wise to learn how to discipline yourself even with a little. So share with us some of the stuff on your handout there that might get us on the right track, Jeffrey.
Okay, if I'm taking this from the book, Simplifying the Money Conversation. We actually worked with Ron Blue Institute to put this together. It's got a lot of practical stuff in there, but more than anything, it's starting with the right perspective. So if you don't have a handout, there's some over on the table over there. First, we're going to start with heart. So perspective always starts with your heart aligning with 4 beliefs. Stewardship, contentment, faith, and wisdom. So if you look at stewardship, there's an attitude behind it that differs from what you see in the world.
And can you read what that says there in the stewardship?
Sure. Do I behave as a steward of my possession by holding them with an open hand? So the idea is understanding that everything belongs to God in the first place. And He's given me all that I have as a stewardship. I'm just managing it for a little while until He says, open your hand, let it go.
So they're to rate themselves.
So,
open hand kind of question.
Correct. So again, the question is, if you can't read it very well in your handout, I know that some of those are kind of light. Do I behave as a steward of my possessions by holding them with an open hand? Give you a few seconds to answer that. Let's flip over to contentment. on the other side, am I content with what I have right now? Answer that. And then down to the left quadrant of the heart, faith. Do I seek God's direction in my finances and rely on His provision? You can score that.
Any of you guys ever been in a position where you didn't know where your next meal was going to come from?
Right.
Yeah, it's humbling.
Yeah.
And that faith is a big part of that. Go ahead.
Wisdom. Do my financial decisions align with my biblical principles? So all four of these, I think, give you an approach to money that differs from what the world teaches. And I think we all understand that wealth in the world's eyes is all about appearances. And that's because we feel subject to the judgment of others based on this sensitive topic of money. So if you can change your perspective by aligning your heart with this belief structure, it's going to change your behavior down the road. So that's why we start with heart. Any questions on that?
So it looks like the higher you are, if you're picking 4s and 5s, that's an indication that your heart's probably in a good place.
Yes. So, I mean, I'd say if you're on track with all 5s, great. You probably had parents that taught you about money. I always ask my clients, what were your early experiences with money? Did your parents ever talk to you about money? Schools do not teach this topic. You do not get this in our public education system.
Let me ask real quick, show of hands, how many of you had parents that sat down and showed you exactly how money worked? So not a lot. How many of you, like me, we kind of went into life kind of guessing at money? Yeah. Go ahead.
So let's go down to habits, 5 biblical principles. So again, we want to assess where your strengths and weaknesses are. So this puzzle is assembled with different areas. How do you use money? So first is give generously. So you can score that weak to strong. I'd say giving generously, you have to have margin in order to give, right? If you don't have any margin, so that's the word of the night is margin. If you have margin with your schedule, so let's use a non-monetary measure of margin, then you're going to be less stressed throughout the day because you give yourself plenty of time to get from one thing to the next, get from one location to the next. Too often, we don't create margin in our schedule, and our day becomes frantic, a frantic scamper from one task to the next, and maybe not even finishing what we set out to do in the morning. Same with money. If you don't create margin, you're always going to be stressed about it. So giving generously actually, it forces you to recognize you already have margin. And so some of these things that we'll talk through will ultimately feed into that. Avoid the use of debt. So score yourself as far as avoiding the use of debt. And as far as debt goes, have any of you heard good debt versus bad debt? Just raise your hand, get an example. Okay. So what do we mean by that? Good debt would be something you borrow based on an asset that could potentially hold or even increase its value. If you borrow to purchase a depreciating asset, that's considered in general bad debt. So when we're trying to coach people out of debt. The idea is to borrow for the things that you're going to have some sustaining value. It's going to be there maybe 5-10 years down the road. Yeah, did you have a question, Mike? They hold their value, right? Let's go to the centerpiece, spend less than you earn. Again, word of the night, margin. If you can start with this first habit here, that can feed into everything else. Kind of put at the center of this for a reason. So score yourself as far as spending less than you earn.
This lower left one, I can't read it all. I'm not sure what this
Yeah,
is.
so that one will be set long-term goals. Go ahead and score yourself on that. Not thinking about just your immediate needs or even intermediate needs, but...
And then the same on the right, I can't read that one very well either. So.
And then right-hand corner, plan for financial margin. There's the word. So it's not just today, but it's also creating some margin for yourself down the road. Okay, flip over to the other side, health. So here you get to assign some percentages, and you can actually, there's a worksheet to figure this out. What I want you to do for now is just estimate. Estimate what of your income, what percentage of your income goes to each of these different areas. So you got live, give, owe, grow. And O is divided into two areas, taxes and debt. So just real quick, within 15-20 seconds, try to assign percentages just based on top of your head numbers. Well, we have taxes in here, so depending, yeah. So I have lots of conversations with my clients about taxes and how to minimize them, create tax-free growth, because that's one way you could shrink that percentage for more in the rest of the pie.
On your growth, Jeffrey, would you include stuff like your 401k or not in there?
Yeah. Anything that you are investing for long-term goals would be in that category. Future needs.
Did you say 401k is under O?
Grow. And if you want to put actual numbers to it, there's some lines down there below. Again, I have a worksheet for those who want to go the extra mile. You can fill out the worksheet, and I'll be happy to give you one of those. So, Robbie, what were your early, when did you first get a clue about money?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Aren't we all?
It's ever since I got put in charge of the treasury here at the fellowship.
That's why we're doing so well here, right here.
No, you don't, certainly don't do church work for the money, but it is certainly, I've always been good with watching my money and balancing a budget and keeping track of that stuff. Some of you guys are sitting there, I know, thinking, man, I'm in debt. I'm in so much debt, I don't even want to think about money. If you've ever been in that position, it's really, it's like this weight is on you all the time. And I've had that kind of debt before, and it's like, sometimes you just want to stick your head in the sand, like pretend it's not there. But really the best thing you can do is just take some time and just be honest about your finances. Doesn't have to be in your table group tonight, or maybe it will be, maybe you'll share that with somebody. But if you start just looking at where you're really at and be honest, you can start actually making progress towards getting someplace. But if you keep avoiding it, thinking that maybe someday this will work out, but I don't want to talk about it now, or you're just avoiding something that's eventually going to catch up with you. So if you're in a situation where you're strangled by debt, be encouraged. There are people that have way worse debt that still come out of it. You just have to get on the right track. There are programs and there's books. We're not going to go into all that tonight, but if you need help or assistance, certainly Jeffrey has things he can refer. I've got things I can refer as well. I just want you guys, it's really more about the heart. It just takes time and persistence and wise decisions to get you on the right track. But don't avoid money, and don't avoid the headaches it causes you. Or if you're just living paycheck to paycheck, like, oh my word, will it ever end? Can I get a better job? You can, but it's usually these things don't come overnight. And you just have to kind of one step at a time and move in the right direction. And yeah, I don't know if that's just a bunch of rambling or not, but.
Well, it's a great segue because the last is hope. And I think this is where I love doing what I do, because after I take a member or a client through the process of financial planning, I get feedback and stories of where at the beginning of the process they didn't think it would be possible for them to retire or to get out of debt or to purchase a desire, sometimes lake house or something else that they've been wanting for a very long time. By the end of that process, we come out with a realistic plan as to how they can do that, they're so thankful that they took the time to plan. So what I want you to see here is everyone starts at a different place. So you can see on this margin meter, the lowest margin starting on the lower left part of the circle. I know you can't see the circle on your copies, but struggling, not able to make ends meet, kind of the story that actually both Robbie and I grew up in. I grew up with a single parent, in a single parent home. My mom raised me. We grew up in the ghetto of Tucson, and it was all the time trying to figure out how we were going to make it. And strangely enough, my mom almost looked to me for what to do because she had no idea. So if you start there, just know that there's hope. You can come out of that. The next step, we call it surviving, living paycheck to paycheck. At least you've got enough to live. Stable, saving some with an emergency fund. We typically, start out with a small amount, just again to create some margin to that space that you need. Eventually, working towards 3 to 6 months of your expenses. Finally, getting to a place where you feel secure, saving for long-term goals. Ted mentioned 401k. Then we want to get to a place where everybody, I have a goal for everyone to get to a place where they can live generously, they can live from surplus. Because why do we make all this money? So we can give it all away. And that is the fun part about money. God gave us money as a tool. It's a tool that we can use to expand his kingdom, to make his kingdom a reality now, not someday when. And when you get to be a part of that, it's going to change you, and it's going to change the environment around you. So that's why I'm passionate about this, that people do create margin, because it has real world impact for them personally, but also everyone around them that they touch.
Looks like there's a couple questions at the bottom for table time
Yeah,
discussion.
so those are table time questions. You got plenty of time to talk through those. If you want the other questionnaire, I brought 25 of those, so come see me. Happy to give you one of those. And I actually have one extra copy of this book if there's somebody who really, number one, wants it, and number two, will use it and apply it. Come see me, I'll give it to you.
Let me just, I could talk on this topic all night, and I really want to leave time for you guys to discuss. But let me leave you with a couple of comments or thoughts. One is it's never too late to make wise decisions. Some of you guys in this room are retired, or you're thinking, man, I can't, I'm not even working anymore, what am I gonna do? It's never too late to make wise decisions. And secondly, we can't take any of this stuff with us anyhow. We're all gonna die someday, and I'll just pull out a couple verses here. It says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And you know that verse. It's true though, and we really need to live that. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people are eager for money, have wandered from their faith, and pierced themselves with many griefs. It's funny how sometimes the wealthy people have all these problems and challenges. And I know living in Fort Wayne, people think, oh, if you live southwest or wherever, they have problems too. They have just different problems that are disguised a little bit differently, but they all go back to the heart. And if you're in a situation where you think, man, it's tough right now, let me just remind you, and I'm not belittling any financial situation here, we live in a pretty good deal here. If you've ever had the chance to visit a third world country, you know, a lot of the world is that way. We don't worry in this country too much about dirt floors or our safety in finding firewood to heat a stove or traveling 6 miles a day to get water that's not even clean. We've got it pretty good. Even the poorest of us, if we look at it in a bigger perspective, have a pretty good deal. And so this thing about hope is really, it's powerful because our hope is not in firewood or finances or any of that stuff, it's in the Lord. And if you ever have been really in a tight spot, it's amazing how your faith is tested and how God can provide. Now sometimes it even draws you closer to the Lord because you're not lost in all your toys and games. And I know, certainly I married my wife, and she is not from a wealthy family either. But as her mom passed away and her dad's getting older, he's been giving us more of a financial gift at Christmas. He's trying to get rid of some of his money, which I'm all for. And, but it's interesting as Christmas rolls around, I have to watch that I don't expect a check. Because I'm like, what do you give us this year? You know, how much is it? And I'm thinking I've already got it spent in my mind. And I'm like, oh, that's it, you know, and it's just a dangerous place to go if all of a sudden the gift becomes all about me and what I want to get with it. And so I have to go about, even in a good situation, watching what my heart is and being happy if I get nothing. Don't get me wrong, I still have bills and tight budget like everybody else too, but this is a great topic, and I really want to encourage you guys. Jeffrey did leave an extra sheet. Is that up here, or is it going to be?
I've got it.
So he's going to put a worksheet on the back counter when you leave. If you want to take home something that give you something more practical to work on, and realizing full well this is just a small sliver tonight of a really deep topic. But I want to encourage you guys to have great discussion. And if you do need more assistance in this, or help, or somebody to talk to, I'm available, Jeffrey's available, and there are others among us as well. So let me just pray tonight, and then I'll let you guys break into your table groups. If you're new and do not have a group, come up and see me, we'll get you plugged in. So let's pray. So Jesus, we thank you tonight that we can go into a real practical topic. There's a lot of emotion and a lot of thoughts and feelings on finances, and we know that it's all yours, and you give us this to steward and to treat well And so we look to you to help us with that and also to provide for our needs as we go through this life. And we praise you for how good we do have it. So I pray tonight that our discussions go well, that we would be proactive men in taking control of the financial situations in our life, and to never give up the hope that really ultimately lies in you. And I pray this in your powerful name, Jesus. Amen. Real quick, next week you're not going to want to miss, because we're going to have a little, kind of ties in with this, little discussion on some of the smart tips in purchasing a vehicle, a car, a truck, some of these things that most of you guys like me went into adult life guessing how to buy a vehicle and guessed wrong, all that. So don't miss next week. Go ahead, break into your groups.